Somewhere, there are photos of you. You recognize the face, the setting, maybe even what you were thinking that day. But the person in that photo, the one wearing your face, living in your body, carrying your name, that person is gone. Not metaphorically, not poetically, biologically, psychologically, neurologically, gone. And the strangest part isn't that they died. The strangest part is that you didn't notice. There was no funeral, no goodbye, no moment where the old you stepped aside and the new you took over. It just happened, quietly, while you were busy living. And today, we need to talk about what that actually means. There's a thought experiment that's been haunting philosophers for 2,000 years. The Ship of Theseus, a famous ship, preserved in a harbor. But wood decays, so the worn planks get replaced, one by one, until eventually every single piece of the original ship has been swapped out. The question is simple, devastating. Is it still the same ship? For centuries, that felt abstract, an intellectual puzzle for people with too much time. Then, biology stepped in, and suddenly it wasn't abstract at all. Your body replaces itself, continuously, relentlessly, without asking your permission. Skin, gone and rebuilt every 2 to 4 weeks. Red blood cells, replaced every 4 months. Stomach lining, every 5 days. Your bones, which feel like the most permanent thing about you, completely replaced every decade, 10 years. Every physical component, swapped out. You are, in the most literal biological sense, a different ship. And that's not even the disturbing part. The body replacing itself? Fine. Cells swap out. Mechanical, distant, easy to accept. But your brain is different. Your brain doesn't just replace cells, it rewires. Every experience you've had, every relationship, every year of living, all of it physically restructures the architecture of how you think, feel, and remember. The neural pathways that fired when you were afraid 10 years ago? Gone. Rerouted. The ones that activated when you felt joy, when you made a decision, when you knew exactly who you were. Physically reorganized. The brain you're using right now to process these words did not exist 10 years ago. And this is where biology ends, and something harder begins. Because if the physical structure of your thoughts has changed, then the beliefs that felt most you, the fears that felt permanent, the version of yourself you were most certain about, where did they go? Think about who you were 10 years ago. Not the version you show people online, the real version. The person you were when nobody was watching. The things you believed so deeply back then that now feel embarrassing, childish, or completely wrong. The people you thought would stay in your life forever, but didn't. The dreams you once wanted so badly that today barely even matter to you. And slowly, you realize something uncomfortable. That old version of you is completely gone. Not hidden, not asleep, gone. The way they thought, feared, loved, and saw the world no longer exists anywhere. But here's the strange part. When other people disappear from our lives, we grieve them. We cry, remember them, build rituals around the loss. But when old versions of ourselves disappear, we say nothing. No goodbye, no acknowledgement. Even though entire versions of you have died over and over again throughout your life. And maybe the strangest part of growing older is realizing how many people you've already been. But this is where it gets genuinely strange. Because if the person you were 10 years ago is gone, biologically, neurologically, psychologically, then who has been taking credit for their decisions? You carry their consequences. You live in the house their choices built. You're in relationships they started, careers they chose, patterns they established. You're paying debts, financial, emotional, relational, that a fundamentally different person incurred. And you didn't get a say. Think about that. A person who no longer exists made decisions that you are living with right now. A brain that has since been rewired. A belief system that has since collapsed. A version of yourself you might not even recognize anymore. That version shaped the architecture of your current life. This is where everything changes. Because most people spend enormous energy either defending the past self or being ashamed of it. Justifying old decisions. Carrying old guilt. Protecting an identity that biologically, literally no longer exists. You are in a prison built by someone else. Someone who wore your face. Psychologists have a term for the way humans maintain a false sense of continuous identity across time. They call it the narrative self. The idea is that the brain constructs a story, ongoing, edited in real time, that creates the felt sense of being the same person across years and decades. It smooths over the discontinuities. It connects the dots between who you were and who you are in a way that feels seamless, inevitable, true. But the narrative self isn't a window into reality. It's a coping mechanism. Because the alternative, fully experiencing the discontinuity, truly feeling how different you are from the person you were, truly sitting with the fact that the self is not a fixed thing, but a constantly dying and regenerating process, that is deeply uncomfortable for the human mind to hold. So the brain tells a story instead. You've always been you. The thread has always been unbroken. The ship is still the same ship. And most people never question it. They just keep living in the story, carrying identities that expired years ago, defending beliefs they absorbed before their brain had finished forming, being haunted by versions of themselves they've already biologically left behind. But here's the turn I want you to hold. Because this could all lead to nihilism, to the conclusion that if the self is constantly dying, then nothing persists, nothing matters, there is no real you at all. That would be the easy conclusion. The true one is harder and stranger, and actually worth something. The Ship of Theseus philosophers argued for centuries about whether the replaced ship was still the same ship, but they were asking the wrong question. The right question isn't is it the same ship? The right question is what makes it a ship at all? Not the planks, not the nails, not any single component. The pattern, the function, the continuity of purpose. And you are the same. Not because your cells persisted, not because your beliefs survive, not because the neural pathways from 10 years ago are still firing, but because something has been tending the ship. Something has been making choices about which planks to replace and which to keep. Something has been navigating. That something is not a fixed self, it's a direction. And here's the most unsettling gift buried inside all of this. If the self is not fixed, if you have already died and been reborn multiple times without noticing, then the version of yourself you are most afraid of becoming, or most ashamed of having been, is not a life sentence. It was a plank. And planks can be replaced. Find a photo of yourself from 10 years ago. Look at it long enough that it starts to feel strange, that the face becomes slightly unfamiliar, that you start to notice the distance between who that person was and who is looking at the photo right now. Then ask yourself something most people are too afraid to ask. What did that person deserve that they never received? Compassion, maybe. Patience. Someone to tell them that the things they were so certain about were going to change, and that was okay. That the self they were clinging to so tightly was already in the process of becoming something else. You didn't get to say goodbye to them, but you're still here. And 10 years from now, someone will find a photo of who you are today. They'll recognize the face, and they'll feel the same quiet distance. The question isn't whether you're going to change. The question is whether you're going to be intentional about who does the replacing. Because the ship is already being rebuilt. It always has been. The only question is whether you're the one holding the hammer.